Hey guys, welcome to the Sports Note for Sunday night, October 30th. It is Devil's Night. I should actually be watching my favorite Halloween movie of all time, The Crow. Fire it up, fire it up. Instead, I got the Bills on in the background here. Got to be sporting a little bit of Bills Mafia going on here. So we're actually going to keep this one pretty close to the vest and pretty quick here tonight. The latest college football poll rankings came out earlier this afternoon, and we've got naturally Georgia at number one in both polls. Depending on which poll you look at, you've got Tennessee at two, or you've got Tennessee in a tie at number two. You've got Ohio State at two, or a tie at two in the other one. And then you've got Michigan at four. And then you've got Clemson at number five, you got Alabama at six, and you got TCU in both polls. Now, there are still six unbeaten teams left in the country. Of the ones that I just rattled off, Alabama, naturally, they're the only ones with the loss on their schedule, and that was a couple of weeks ago to Tennessee. Tennessee proceeded to whoop the living snot out of Kentucky this weekend. And it wasn't even close. I mean, naturally, if I'm going to say something like that, it wasn't close. Georgia got a massive victory over Florida in the world's largest outdoor cocktail party, more than doubled them up. As a Gator fan, that one hurt to watch a little bit. Ohio State struggled for a while and then actually pulled away from Penn State late for a 13-point victory. We actually had Michigan struggle with Michigan State for a little while, and then eventually came away with the win there. Tennessee's win was 44-6 against Kentucky. Clemson was off this week, and Clemson was coming hot off the heels of a big come-from-behind victory last week against Syracuse. Now, if you follow the Sports Note on the blog, you'll see that I actually wrote about this on Thursday. I was way too tired to actually go home and write this and post this video on Thursday. Friday, I got slammed at work. Yesterday, I was just exhausted, and then we're taping this very late on Sunday here. It's actually now after 8:30 p.m. By the time this is actually being recorded, it's probably not going to get up until after 9. But over the course of the next couple of weeks, we're going to have some eliminators in college football. Naturally, Georgia-Tennessee is going to be, it's a 1 versus 2. And if you're looking at the AP poll, you've got Tennessee actually even with Ohio State. They both have 1,500 votes, but Tennessee's kind of getting a little bit more of a nod here because they have 18 first-place votes to Ohio State's 15. Tennessee would actually be a little bit more deserved to be in that second spot over Ohio State. Do I hate Tennessee as a Florida fan? Yes. Do I hate Ohio State in general? Yes. Is Tennessee more deserving in principle and less out of spite? Absolutely, because Ohio State has actually the teams that Ohio State beat, they struggled with a little bit, whereas Tennessee beat Alabama and then beat the living hell out of Kentucky, and there's no reason for them not to be the second best team in the country right now and getting that many first place votes. As a matter of fact, in the AP poll, they were only 28 votes behind Georgia. In the coaches poll, there's a lot bigger of a gap. It's 47 votes, and then between Georgia and Ohio State, Tennessee is actually 50 votes behind Ohio State, but did get 5 first-place votes in the coaches poll. Tennessee was actually the only team to move up, down, or anything other than lateral in the AP poll this week, jumping one spot from 3 into that tie at 2. But when you look at, again, Georgia and Tennessee, somebody's going to lose there. You've got Ohio State and Michigan right now controlling their own destiny, possibly setting up an undefeated showdown in Columbus here Thanksgiving weekend. You've got TCU, who has actually pushed themselves into the cream of the crop in the Big 12 at 8-0. Their next closest competitor would be Kansas State, who they beat a couple of weeks ago, and then and the only other team that was in that conversation would have been Oklahoma State. Kansas State proceeded to shut out Oklahoma State 48-0 yesterday. So yeah, thanks for coming, Cowboys. We'll see you in 2023. But TCU and Michigan are kind of in that second tier. They can get into the playoff, but nobody's expecting them to win the semifinal. They do control their own destiny in the conferences that they're in. If Michigan beats Ohio State, they'll get to the Big Ten title game, and there's not a scenario where you can keep them out. TCU wins out, even if they lose in the Big 12 title game. I can see a scenario where they would get in because then they'll have beaten several high-profile teams leading up to their defeat at the very, very end of the year. Georgia's in at this particular point unless Tennessee shocks the world and beats them by 3 scores. Now, the flip side of that argument would be is that if Georgia hosts Tennessee next week and beats Tennessee by 3 scores, I don't care what the scenario is, Tennessee's done. I'm sorry. Tennessee would at that point be 8-1, and they'd be chasing Georgia. But the one team that nobody's really paying any attention to out of this whole ordeal is Clemson. Keep in mind, this is a school that in 2021 finished third in the ACC, snapping their streak of 6 straight ACC titles, where they also ended up getting to 6 college football playoffs, 4 national championship games, and had a pair of national championships. This is actually the greatest set of smoke and mirrors that Dabo Swinney has got going so far, just because Clemson's defense is for real. We've known that the last few years. Clemson's problem right now is they don't know who they are on offense. Swinney right now is one of only 2 coaches and the only active coach in all of college football to have beaten Nick Saban twice since Clemson's first run to the college football playoff. The only other coach to do it was Gus Malzahn, who's actually was fired at Auburn not that long ago. With the Tigers, it took them 2 overtimes to beat Wake Forest back in week 4. And then they led 21-10 at the break against Syracuse last week. And then junior quarterback DJ Uiagalelei, he actually got benched at halftime. And they turned to freshman Cade Klubnik, who was, for all intents and purposes, a 5-star recruit coming out of high school, and was hopeful to kind of take over the program when DJ left. And quite honestly, after the first half last week, you might as well just be calling him DJ Gungala Gungala for the way that he played and the way that Klubnik was actually able to rally the Tigers to that come from behind victory over Syracuse. The idea that Clemson controls their own destiny is absolutely true, because the only other team on their schedule right now that is ranked at the moment is North Carolina. There was South Carolina on their schedule in the Palmetto Bowl, but South Carolina got upset by unranked Mizzou yesterday. South Carolina was 25th, and that essentially knocked them completely out to where they only got 2 votes in the AP and only 9 votes in the coaches poll. So they are basically outside the top 40s, definitely not helping their strength of schedule at this point. Clemson does actually have games finishing up against their at Notre Dame in prime time next Saturday. Then they're home to Louisville, home to Miami, and then home to South Carolina. So their road schedule concludes in South Bend, where Notre Dame really, since the Ohio State loss, has not been the same program whatsoever. Louisville is 5-3 on the year. They're 3-3 in the ACC. Miami honestly, I'm starting to think it's the sports note curse of death that I gave Miami that great write up. Then Miami loses and then basically takes a nosedive, and then South Carolina with that one in Death Valley, on the campus of Clemson. That's going to be very, very interesting to see exactly what the Tigers do from here on out. They're in the driver's seat. They, I believe, with a win over Louisville, they would clinch at least a share of the ACC Atlantic title. They'd actually move to 7-0 in the division at that point, and they own the tiebreaker over Syracuse. I think it actually, I honestly could see some scenarios that if Florida State loses in their next conference game, Clemson would actually clinch that. Whereas North Carolina is 4-0 in the conference and 7-1 in overall. They have a 2-game lead over, surprisingly enough, Duke in that division, and also Miami at 2-2. So Miami, the door's not officially closed on them yet, but it's closing very, very quickly. But the idea with Clemson of being that team that's going to sneak in and possibly play a little bit of spoiler, although when it comes right down to it, if Clemson gets in as possibly a 4, they're going to be a cannon fodder, almost tune-up game at this particular point for whoever number 1 is, whether it's Tennessee, whether it's Ohio State, or whether it's Georgia. But what do you guys actually think? Let me know in the comment box down below. I will be back with the regular sports note and a timely reply a little later on this week. The Wise Guys Sports Show is now tentatively scheduled for Saturday night, November the 12th, and I believe it'll be our last show before the Ohio State Michigan preview Black Friday weekend. So let me know again what you guys think, and I will see you guys very, very soon. Go Bills.